This is the best practice for putting your .env files on your production system. Don't. Stick it in your git ignore, set it on fire in your deployments, and meditate on your folly for wanting to use it, then whine in Slack that the mean ops guy doesn't know what he's talking about. If you've been sent this link by a coworker, allow me to explain why we don't .env in prod. The third tenet of a 12-factor application is to store all config in the environment. This is good and righteous. To make this easier for developers to work with, though, most languages have a .env module available to take configuration data from a file, generally called .env, and load it into the environment. Love it. Wonderful. However, in my days deploying applications, I have been inundated with developers, at first asking politely where to put the .env file, then insisting, and then getting me into meetings with very important people about absolutely needing them. You do not need them. You need the configuration kept within them. You see, .env files hold values for environment variables. Developers will make a call to their .env library to pull in the contents of that file and make it available to the application via whatever method the language uses to get environment variables. That's it. In every library, if that .env file doesn't exist, it simply does nothing and leaves the environment untouched. If we look at the default npm version of .env, we see that it's parsing the .env file, if it exists, and adding the values to the environment, if the value does not already exist in the environment. The thing is, every hosting system will already have a way to set up the environment for the running application. Really? If I deploy using a service on a VM, I'll probably have Ansible or SSM stick a very similar file in the etc defaults directory, and then point systemd to use it there because that's where ops people expect it to be. If I'm using containerized deployment method, I can use this. Or even this. Do I want to deploy via Cloud Functions? That's right on the config page. When I set runtime environment variables by default, the values I'm providing will override anything you had in that .env file, rendering it useless. But wait, you say. You have a special case that needs your variables to be set or the program explodes. That's a good point. That variable does need to be set. What if I told you that you can test to see if it is set, emit a very specific error message that tells you if it needs to be set, and maybe a short blurb on what the possible values are, and then quickly exit with an error code. Bam! You have a documented dependency and made friends with the ops team in less than 10 lines of code. Heck, test all the variables at once, so they'll only have to fail out once. You will be lauded as a god amongst the people. Now, when it comes to your source repo, don't commit the .env files to the repo. There's a good chance that the env file will eventually leak passwords or keys or start providing wrong info over time. Like I said earlier, it's best to drop the file name directly into .gitignore at the start of the project. If you want a template, just create a file called .env.template.sh and everyone will know what's going on. Don't put real config data in that template file, but do add lots of comments explaining what everything is. Alright, short one today. So I hope you found that useful. As always, I am Dan, Dedicated Cloud Architect. If you have any ways to improve on what I've said here, please feel free to let me know in the comments. And if I, your humble servant, can do better, please let me know. Thank you, and goodbye, nerds.